If you're sitting out there right now and you're a little uncertain of where you are, where you're going, or what even you want to be, is that you can't give up on making a difference today. I got too many people trapped in the past that are carrying it like a ball in a chain. You shake that loose, you break those chains. I got way too many people who are so afraid of what tomorrow's going to bring that they can't enjoy today.
Hey everybody, Michael Laitler here, host of the LEO First podcast, and today you could tell who I have with me. If you don't know, it's the man, the myth, the legend, my mentor, Paul Butler, and we're here in Massachusetts, my first time here at the New England Chiefs of Police Conference. We're bringing you this live or in-person podcast that switched it up a little bit. I know a lot of times you guys see us on Zoom, you might see me in my house, you might see somebody at their house, but tonight we're switching up just for you. Paul, I know we've met a few times in person now, and now you've been coaching me and mentoring me on the speaker role. I am really, truly excited. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Tell the viewers about you.
Well, the first thing I want to clear up is I've learned as much from you as you're ever going to learn from me. I have enjoyed working with you, getting to meet you. And what I want folks to know is it started basically with a cold call. You kind of messaged me, and next thing you know, we're best friends, right?
That was me.
I love that.
Yeah, that was me. That was.
But that's what I think more people should do is you've got too many people who are afraid to get started. It's not difficult to get rolling. It's just afraid to get, it's that fear of getting started that holds most people back. And that was the thing I admired most about you, is you were right out the gate with a, not only can you help me, it was a can I help you with something. And whenever it's a partnership, it's going to turn into a friendship. So I appreciate that.
No, it's been great. And the crazy part of the night, it took me 3 decades to learn that about mentoringship, but also giving back. Like, don't just ask somebody for something, offer them something. Mm-hmm. So that was something I wanted to do for you, because I was like, you know what? I don't want him to just think, and like I said, I know your personality, but I don't want you to think like, oh, Michael's just trying to take from me all the time. So I was like, whatever I can do to help out, because I know that when we pour into each other, we just grow better.
I say this, that when I first started in the speaking business, and you asked me to tell them a little bit about myself, I did 27 years on the job, all right there in Horry County, South Carolina. I live in Aner, South Carolina, on Butler Road, all right? I'm blessed to be on Butler Road. My sister lives next door to me. My brother lives across the farm. I mean, it's just been one of those kind of like you see on TV shows. But after that law enforcement career, I started a little business, traveling and training. Thought that if I could speak 2 or 3 times a month, I'd call it a success. I mean, I'm speaking 4 and 5 times a week now, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I say is it's not about what I've been able to teach on the road that fuels my fire. Mm-hmm. It's actually what I've been able to learn. And anybody who gets into this business, and you do this to perfection, I tell them if you're ever going to be the best instructor they've ever heard, then you got to be the best student in every room. Mm-hmm. And you do that. You soak everything up and you take it in, and then you put it back out as a product that everyone can learn from. Well, that's what true teaching is. And so it's an honor to stand on a stage with guys like you. And I want you to know that the people I've met have been the most amazing part of this entire journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talk about like the starting of your speaking journey, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 times a month. And now you're speaking 3 or 4 times a week. And I know there's speakers that I've actually referenced you, and I'm like, hey, there's a guy named Paul Butler. He speaks probably 75 times a year. And they're like, nuh-uh, we barely speak 7 times a year. I'm like, no. I said, but I tell them the biggest thing is momentum and getting it rolling and taking it from there. So for you, when did you see that kind of shift in your speaking engagements?
Well, I don't know. I do tell people that if you're going to make it in any business, mm-hmm. I mean, this is advice for any business, is you're going to have to pay your dues. And at some point, you're going to have to hustle. And you can, the longer you put that off, the harder you have to hustle. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where early on, everybody, this is what you're going to find out in the speaking business, is everybody wants to start where you have ended up. Okay?
They see you on top of the platform, and they're like, oh, I want to be right there right now.
I'd love to do that, and I'd love to get paid what you do, and I'd love to travel like you do. Well, I will never be able to speak enough for money to make up for the times I've spoken for free. It's just something you have to do. This is what I suggest to speakers. If you want to become a speaker, you should have started years ago. And at that time, you should be speaking to every Rotary Club, every Lions Club, every Cub Scout troop. Anything you can do to go ahead and hone those skills and kind of watch that audience and see what is it they're responding to. The things they respond to, you develop that out. The things that they don't respond to, you either have to retool it, right, and give it to them again, or you got to go ahead and scratch that. I mean, because sometimes I find a story that I think is incredibly impactful, but it's not to them, right? So it's not my job to just keep feeding them what they don't want. And so that's the thing. I think that if you're ever on that stage, that audience tells you everything you need to know about what's working.
I could tell you in the last 2 years how many things I have retooled because I thought about it. And it's funny because I have a presentation right now that talks about leadership and wellness programs. Like 2 years ago, I didn't have that type of presentation, but I started to realize through audience interaction, the questions afterwards, I was just like, you know what? I think I need to start gearing leadership and wellness together because people start saying, hey, can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me more about that? And it was always related to those two topics. So now I find myself more engaged in it. And like you said, you've learned how to work with what makes sense for the audience. And I tell people sometimes, although it might be the best presentation in your mind,
that's right.
If the market doesn't want it, then you should probably look at it differently.
No doubt about it. And right now, people are starving for safety and wellness. They're starving for leadership. And they're looking for a teamwork aspect. We, over the last few years, have gotten very comfortable working in a silo, right? We're all just going to be our own thing and put our head down and do our work from home, work from Zoom. But the key to successful law enforcement, especially in most professions, is how well we interact with others. And there has to be a refocusing on that. And folks like you, this is one thing, one of the many things I love about you. You bring that big personality into every room you walk into. It's a big smile, it's a big hello, it's a hug. And we've got to get back to that type of interaction.
I agree.
We can't just stand across the room and feel like we're making a connection anymore.
Yeah, and it's tough because when people look at the industry we speak in, sometimes they think that the people in the audience do not want that because law enforcement can kind of be standoffish, but really they're still people. And I want people to know that, like, and you've seen it, I mean, your energy has been going on for decades. So you know it, and you obviously have reaped the benefits because people call you back because of your energy. And I think other speakers are sometimes scared to kind of engage or interact. And I'm like, no, that's what makes people want to hear you more, is when you are engaging.
And no doubt, you have to be engaging. And that means it has to feel interactive. Even if you're not actually asking questions, you have to feel like you're answering the questions they have on their minds. But I say that the components of a successful presentation, it starts with you have to go out there to earn it. I just don't believe anytime you walk on that stage that your name really matters that much.
They don't.
You have to go like that's the first one you've ever done, like it's the only one that's ever going to be recorded and remembered. You have to go out and pour your heart into it. And that's whether I've got 15 in the audience or 1,500. It's all the same to me, is how do I give my best and make as many of them in that audience walk out of there and say, my God, I'm so glad I didn't miss that. If you're going to do that, that component has to be more than just earning it. It's have to share that respect. Give them a voice. Give them a chance to talk. Give them a chance to speak to you on the break. I have several presentations where they sometimes say, well, we're going to go without a break. I don't do a break for me. I do a break for the audience.
Correct.
And I want them to be able to walk up and say, you said something that resonated with me or something I disagree with.
And give them a chance.
I've learned a lot from them on the breaks. And most of the time, the thing they'll teach you the most is they'll ask a question that causes me sometimes to take the next segment in a different direction. So they have to be a partner in that presentation. And then the last thing you do is you got to leave there having made sure nobody wasted their time. That's me, or them or the person who brought me there. I don't want anyone to feel like there was a waste in it. Waste of money, waste of time, waste of energy. My time's too valuable. I could be home. I could do something else.
Here, you could be with the missus, yeah.
There you go. I've got tons of stuff I could be doing. And what I never want to do is feel like, no, I just spent 4 hours on stage, and at the end of it, nobody was really any better, including me. So my goal in there is for everyone to grow. That includes me. Every time I speak, and I have to say, no audience has ever let me down. They will rise to the occasion and become the teachers that you need in your life to keep being a good teacher.
And I think that's important because even if, like you said, if you have 15 to 1,500, there's going to be good audience members in there. And there's going to be people that really want to be there, and they're going to be the ones that are driving your presentation. And it's funny, and this was a kudos to you because you actually helped me get this presentation, but when I was in Central Asia back in August in Kyrgyzstan, I actually had to have a halftime break with myself because the method I was using wasn't sitting. So I had to like repivot my energy and switch it up. And then the second half of the presentation, I was reading the audience. I was like, okay, I need to switch things up. And then when I went into that second half, boom, it was that immediate connection. But like you said, it's about giving the breaks, but recognizing what's going on, because I think for a lot of speakers that may struggle, they're just thinking, oh, I just have to talk for 2 hours.
Right.
I just have to talk for 4 hours. I just got to give them stuff. But no, you want to make some kind of connection. You want to, you want people to leave better than the way they came. And without that interaction of some sort, I feel like you're losing that chance to change your lives.
I feel like every time you walk into an audience, and I love that you work the international stuff. I say I can tell you're a young man because when you call and say, hey, you're interested in Kyrgyzstan, you're like, yes, count me in.
That was me, yeah.
I was like, you're my guy, all right? But I say that every audience is an opportunity. What you want it to be is an opportunity for them to all learn and grow. But if it's not an opportunity where they learn and grow, it'll be an opportunity for you to learn and grow because they will flat tell you what worked and what didn't.
Correct.
And at the end of it, it's an opportunity for everyone to leave out of there a little different than they came in. So I say this, when I walk in, I assume there are 3 types of groups in every audience. I'm going to reinforce the ones who are already doing what I'm going to teach.
Okay.
All right? There's going to be a percentage of them who already get it.
Yeah.
And they were waiting for someone to show up and say, I'm not the crazy guy or girl, right?
Like, yeah, everybody's doing it, yeah.
Really, that's what I've been doing. I love to hear those. There's a bigger group, larger group in the middle that's not sure who they are. And you're actually guiding them. So you're reinforcing one group, you're guiding another group, a larger group, and then you got that little tiny percentage over there that's not on board. Well, now your job is to challenge them. You can't let them off the hook.
Correct.
Part of the problem inside of the law enforcement society today is we're looking out at our staff and we're saying, oh, I got some rock stars over here, and then I got some rocks, right? And I'm just going to leave the rocks alone. No, your job is to turn them into stars too.
Yep.
You got to at least get them back into the group that's guided, guidable.
Yeah.
And then take that group that's guidable and turn them into rock stars, right? Those are only 3 people in every audience that you'll ever encounter. People who are already doing what you're teaching, people who are wanting to learn how to do what you're teaching, and then the ones who aren't doing any of that at all but need to be led the same way. And if you go in with that type of approach, that out of that audience, all 3 of those are going to feel like I was talking to them, you won't ever have any trouble finding a stage.
When did you realize about these 3 groups that you had to kind of interact with all 3 of them? Because for me, I learned about kind of like the middle group being fence sitters and the people that are always with you. They're just gonna, hey, they're excited for you to be there. You can say, let's go jump off this table, and like, hey, I'm already in, I've been thinking about it.
That's right.
And the other people are like, nah, I ain't even touching that table. So at what point, like in your speaking career, or even when you were chief of police for so many years, that you realized, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm always hitting all 3 groups all the time? Like, how did that come about?
I'm be 100% honest. I always try to be honest. I'm not smart enough to remember my lies. All right.
I'm not even smart enough to take them. To tell them a lot of times. Yeah.
So,
like, what did I say?
So the way I learned about those 3 groups in every group, I'm talking about at every office, every
Correct.
staff,
Yep, absolutely.
every audience, is when I realized that I've been a member of each of those 3 groups at some point in my life. All right. I can remember sitting out in an audience and wanting someone to guide me. Not sure who I was going to be, not sure exactly who I am yet, and wanting someone to guide me. I can remember when I got disappointed or when things didn't go my way. I was that guy who just wanted to sit back and fold my arms and say, oh no, this sucks and it's never going to work out. I want to be my own person. All these other people are being, they're the problem.
Yeah, not us.
And then I remembered that when there were people who really stepped up in my life and wouldn't let me stay a rock. They knew I had the ability to be a rock star, and they wouldn't settle for anything less. They drove me, they pushed me, they challenged me. They weren't as interested in being my friend as being my mentor, or being my supervisor, being my leader. That I realized everyone can be moved. You can take a rock star and ruin them. You can take those ones in the middle that can't be guided and watch them scatter into both groups, right? They'll be difficult. Some of them will be rock stars if you let them rise on their own or fall. But I realized that a lot of people who are struggling with those trouble spots can be moved too. It just takes somebody who is dedicated enough to say, they're not going to fail on my watch. And that's what real leadership is.
Oh, yes.
This is what I'm reminded in my training these days, and I'm super excited about this message, is I'm reminding people that you're not here for the greatest performers. They don't need you. They'll be great no matter who they work for.
That's true. They're already there. They're already there. Yeah.
They make us feel better about our leadership ability, right? It's like, God, must be an awesome sergeant. Look at this guy or girl, how they perform. They don't really need you. They'll be a rock star no matter who they work for.
Correct.
The ones you're here for are the ones struggling. That one in that group who's over there and given up, they've gotten sour, they've folded their arms, that is who needs your leadership. So if you're going to spend time with one or the other at the lunch table, time with one or the other riding around in the car together at night, or backing one of those groups up on calls, you're tons better dealing with the ones that are struggling, because turning them into rock stars is what's really making you a leader.
It's the challenge.
I don't know any leader worth following that's not wanting to take on a challenge. I say in my training regularly that the folks that are struggling are the ones who need the leadership the most, right? But we somehow give them less of it until they come to us.
Correct,
We try to break them.
We feel like they don't need it.
Isolate them. We feel like, hey, they're not going to respond to it, therefore I'm not going to waste my time. I had a guy challenge me on this. It was crazy. He came up on one of the breaks. He said, I think you're wrong about that. He said, I've read leadership books and they all say the same thing. Don't ever miss a chance to invest in your top performers, wasting time with the poor performers who aren't getting it.
A lot of books do say that, yeah.
And I disagree with those books. I say this is how I challenged him, and I'd challenge every leader out there. If you have two children, one of them is an A+ student in math, and the other one is failing in math, which one are you helping more with the homework? I mean, I guess there are some parents who say, no, I'm just going to help the A+ student because they make me feel like a really good parent. And this one that's failing, the world needs ditch diggers too, right? I guess you could say that, but nobody would respect you as a parent if you did.
That's true.
Well, why is it we believe that as a leader I can somehow watch one fail, watch one drown out there, and just keep saving the one who's wading around in the kiddie pool? They get it. They don't need the help.
Correct.
Those people are calling for a lifeline. And I'm looking for more leaders who are ready to swim out there and get the ones who can't swim. The ones who can swim, hey, they'll be okay, I promise.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, I think when we look at that particular mindset, I think the hardest part for some leaders is they feel drained when they're dealing with that person that's not that rock star yet. Because obviously the rock star, you're getting trophies, wins, you're getting that because it's easy. But that person that feels drained from all that development, those are the people that are struggling. So for that leader that's already in that role where, like, you know what, Paul, I'm struggling out here. I don't know what else to do with this rock. Like, what would you tell them to kind of say, you know what, let me help motivate you to help you become that leader for them that they need?
I'm going to show you how in tune you are with the real-time world, okay? That is the number one thing I get told on the break, is exactly what you just said, is those people wear me down. And I just can't keep pouring energy into them and not seeing the needle move. But this is my promise to them. This is my promise to you, is that at the end of this career, or at the end of the time that you have as a sergeant or a lieutenant or even as a chief, whatever your position, at the end of that time, the only thing that is going to keep you fueled for the next fire is the ones you saved that no one else would have spent that much time on. So you got to look at it. Am I looking for the short-term gain, right? Which is, oh man, at the end of the shift, I feel like I did well today.
Right.
Or am I playing the game that says at the end of my career, I did something that most people couldn't have accomplished? It fuels my fire to tackle the tougher areas of this of leadership, right? The low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff, too many people already grabbing that. Let them have it.
Correct. So somebody will be there for that person.
I promise. No way.
Someone's going to take that person out of their way.
And you still reinforce them.
Yeah.
You still spend time with them. They just need less time.
Correct.
Than the other folks do. Just make sure you're managing your time where 100% of your energy is being spent wisely.
Correct.
Right? You're going to expend the same amount of energy every day. Spend it wisely. And the wisest investment are the ones who are going to look up one day and say, I wouldn't have made it without Michael in my life. That is the biggest reward in your career. I still get calls every now and then when someone gets promoted that says things. I've been retired now going on 8 years. And they say things like, I'd never be in this position had it not been for you. Or you were the first one to believe in me.
Those are good calls, yeah.
If anybody's working for any other call, there would never be anything more rewarding than that. They just don't remember you. We're too focused on how do I hustle up the chain and become a chief. Well, no one ever calls you 8 years later and says, I just remember you're the chief, right?
They want to know what part of the process you were in their life.
One of my friends, Dave Malone out of Wisconsin, he was a big time chief up there. He's well known in Wisconsin and all that. And he told me something one time. He said, when I retired, he said, for the first year after I retired, people would say, Chief Malone. He said 2 years later, they'd say, you were the chief, weren't you? He said 3 years later, they said, I know you, but I can't place you. And he said after 3 years, people say, who are you? We got to realize that we're all headed for that conversation.
Absolutely.
I say 8 years later to still get a call from someone who gets promoted, or someone who's still on the job who calls me and says, I want to run this by you to see how you would handle it. That lets you know that you're not going to be forgotten because what you did made a difference. And it made a difference with the people who no one else wanted to take the time with. That's my leadership challenge for everyone out there today.
And that's crazy because I've experienced that too in leadership roles where I may have grown that person that no one looked at as being a jewel because they just saw them as a rock. They didn't know that they had to help them get out of that phase. And just believing in them is what helped them get over whatever hurdle they had, whether it was professionally or personally. And I get those phone calls like, hey man, years ago you were that person that looked out for me. I appreciate it. And it's good to have that feeling, but it comes from leadership. It comes from understanding that sometimes the easy route isn't the only route you need to go.
One of my favorite quotes here that I'm using a lot is, it said that true leaders are never remembered for how many followers they had. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're in charge of 5 people or 500. True leaders are only remembered for how many other leaders they create. You're in the leadership creation business. Yeah. And if you're in charge of 5 people and you create 4 leaders, I got a ton more respect for you than someone who was in charge of 500 and they created 0. You're in the leadership creation business. And whatever level that is, you take it and cause them to go to the next level. If people don't rise around you, if they don't go further than you ever thought you could, that's not a sign of your great leadership. The sign of your leadership is how successful people are around you. And whenever they rise to the top, you get to share a little piece of that. Whether they give you credit or not, we all know where
it started.
We all know where progress comes from. And it is from someone else in your life that pushes you forward. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and if you look at, speaking of like texts that talk about that, John Maxwell talks about level 5 leaders. I want to say it's Jim Collins, good to great author. He talks about level 5 leaders, but level 5 is when you are developing future leaders.
No doubt about it.
You know what I mean? Because they say, okay, it's one thing to be that individual person that's rising through the ranks. Okay, now you have followers. Now you have people that love you. You have people that believe in you. But when are you now creating that next group of leaders? And you're right. That's when you get almost to the highest pinnacle, because at some point you're going to be out of that role. Like you said, chief of police. I mean, there's been someone in your role now for 8 years. The agency still has to run, but what have you done to help build to that level? And people appreciate that.
It is, and I don't think it's any different than most people view leadership at home. I don't know any parent who would call themselves successful that they had a great life and a great home and a great car and a great career, but their children all ended up in prison. I don't think they would die happy.
Oh,
right?
no, correct.
Okay. The sign of success is if you help turn them into great adults. I have grandchildren now, and I want you to know that there's just nothing better. As much as you love your child, now I know you've got a son, he's a rock star, I know how much you love him.
Yeah.
But one day when he has his own little child and you watch someone you love as much as you do love something the way they will love them, that's the first time as a parent you feel like you got it right, is that they somehow became better than you, because they're loving them and they're taking care of them. They're learning from all your strengths, and they're kind of pushing your weaknesses to the back, right? And they're watching them become these amazing parents and having these incredible grandchildren. And all of a sudden you realize, I own a piece of that. And not all of it was good. Like some of them were the bad lessons.
Yeah. If you had to work through some things.
But you own all of it.
Correct.
You own a piece of that. And that's what makes you feel the most gratified. Well, I say that leadership at your office, at your department, at your agency is 100% the same.
Yeah.
Is one day when the officer that you mentored as a sergeant becomes a chief, you get to own a piece of that. Nothing should make you more proud.
Yep, and I've heard that from other executive level law enforcement officers, wardens, chiefs of police, sheriffs. That's usually the best part of their day, or the promotion side, because they're helping somebody advance in their career and more than likely their life. So they appreciate that. So all the things that you've done up to this point, what motivates you to keep doing all of this?
Yeah, I think that what motivates me, folks like you, folks like these people who are going to tune in and listen to this, this is the cruel reality of life, is we have this incredibly short window of opportunity to make a big difference. Some people do it at the office, and some people get to do it at home, and some people get to do it like we're doing it on the road, speaking, like teaching others to be better than they were. But we all have the same window. It closes at a different speed, but everybody has a window. And I realized that at the end of a 27-year career, where most people would have said, you earned your way, you did it, go enjoy your retirement, that's when my real legacy took off. Was after my career. It was after everybody thought that would be kind of the final chapter. That wasn't even the start of the book. That was the foundation on which everything else was built.
Correct.
That qualified me to have experiences and insight that I could get out and share a little bit. But I found out that what I was doing 10 years ago doesn't necessarily move the needle these days, right? It's the fact that I came out here to be a teacher.
Yep.
But they turned me into the best student in the room every time. And the more I learn, the more I can't wait to go get on a stage and talk about some other awesome leader that is out there knocking it out of the park and inspire people sitting in that room. Those ones I said that are doing it, reinforce them. Those ones that are sitting out there saying, I wonder if you can still be awesome, I'm going to guide them. And then those ones who say it can't be done, we're going to challenge them and get everybody moving in the same direction.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I tell people, because they always ask me, what do I do for fun? I say, well, I public speak.
Well said.
Yeah, and they say, well, that's not really fun. I said, well, it is for me, because a lot of times I'm becoming a student too, because I have to learn things about people to make them better. Like some things that I didn't know 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I know a lot better now, even about myself, but that comes from the audience. That comes from the people watching this. That comes from this interaction. But if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't be learning. So for me, public speaking has been something that's been enjoyable for me. So when we're thinking about Paul Butler, how does people find you?
Well, if they'll stand still, I'll pass them in an airport, right? I do know that.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'd say this. I have a website, paul-butler.com, paul-butler.com. Also, I'm on Twitter or X and Instagram. X and Instagram at Paul Butler SC, like South Carolina, at Paul Butler SC. And LinkedIn, that's one of our favorites.
That's definitely my favorite.
This is what I would say to people out there. If you are a professional trying to build a professional network and control your professional image, you don't want to just post about the delicious ham sandwich you had for lunch, right? Like you really want to talk about something meaningful. LinkedIn, get you a profile and connect with me and Michael Laidler. That's exactly who you need in your network.
Yeah, and trust me, guys, LinkedIn is as good as he says, and y'all, you hear me talk about it every show, how much I love it. And a lot of people that are on my show, that's how I've met them, or they've met me through LinkedIn, and then we've cultivated a relationship that has taken life just further in so many ways. So, any final words?
No, I just tell people, if you're sitting out there right now and you're a little uncertain of where you are, where you're going, or what even you want to be, is that you can't give up on making a difference today. I got too many people trapped in the past that are carrying it like a ball in a chain. You shake that loose, you break those chains. I got way too many people who are so afraid of what tomorrow's going to bring that they can't enjoy today. They're trapped in this moment where nothing is happening. They're robbed of their effectiveness, they're robbed of their energy, they're robbed of their enthusiasm, and that robs you of your leadership. Shake off those chains of the past. You don't worry about that fear of tomorrow. You get out there today and make a difference. Give 100% into whatever you're doing. You will have no trouble becoming the leader people like me and Michael Laidler would be proud to follow.
You guys have heard it. I can't even summarize that because that's more than everything you need to know. But if you haven't had the chance, make sure you follow Paul Butler on all the social media platforms you can find him on: LinkedIn, X, Instagram. Obviously, follow me. Make sure you comment on the show. Make sure you share this because you guys have gotten a lot of insight over this time, and this is something that we want for you to have.
That's true.
We do this, like I said, right now it's about 9 o'clock at night over here on the East Coast, up here in Massachusetts. We're doing this for you guys. Like, we do it because we want you to grow. And being instructors, being leaders, we know that the information we push out to you will hopefully make you better. And then hopefully you'll make someone else better in that process. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. If you guys have anything else, reach out to us. If not, be safe. Have a great night. Thank you so much for listening to the LEO First podcast. We hope we have provided you with information that can change your life. I'm asking you one favor. Subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I don't know how I can serve you better. If you know anyone who will benefit from it, please share. Remember, it is simple. Create your legacy.